Airport staff humiliated and expelled Taylor Swift, but everything changed when her boyfriend showed up. Before diving into the story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. The sun had just risen over the San Francisco sky, painting the early morning with vibrant shades of orange and pink. Taylor Swift, global pop icon, adjusted the oversized sunglasses on her face and glanced at the time on her phone. She was on her way to San Francisco International Airport, San Francisco Airport, for a flight back to Nashville after a whirlwind weekend performing a sold-out Eras Tour show. With her signature poise, long blonde hair cascading over a stylish trench coat, she carried the weight of fame, a mix of confidence and pressure swirling within her as she anticipated the next leg of her tour. Last night, her boyfriend, Travis Kelce, had encouraged her over the phone, "You're the best at what you do, Tay. Don't let anyone dim that shine." She cherished his words, but her massive celebrity status and outspoken moments, like her political endorsements, made her a lightning rod, especially in a liberal stronghold like San Francisco. Stepping into the bustling SFO terminal, Taylor was swept into the morning chaos of travelers. With her poised elegance and confident demeanor, she navigated the crowd with ease, heading to the first-class check-in counter, ticket and ID in hand. She approached the counter, placed her documents down, and said, "Good morning." The woman behind it, wearing a name tag that read Jennifer Brooks, looked up with a professional smile. Jennifer, a liberal who'd posted online against Taylor's occasional conservative-leaning comments, instantly recognized her from countless headlines. "Hello, happy to assist you. You're flying to Nashville, right?" "That's right," Taylor replied, "first class." Jennifer glanced at the ticket, then looked up, her tone soft but laced with a subtle edge. "Just to confirm, you're Taylor Swift, the singer, correct? We always aim to provide the best service, especially for passengers with notable influence like yours." Taylor nodded, sensing the undertone. "Yes, that's me. Is there something to clarify?" Jennifer gave a faint smile, her voice polite but tinged with barely perceptible sarcasm. "Nothing to worry about, ma'am. I just want to ensure everything's by the book, since we take security very seriously here, especially for someone with your platform." Though cloaked in professionalism, Taylor could tell Jennifer was jabbing at her fame and past political stances. She felt a flicker of irritation but stayed composed, unwilling to let an airport worker ruin her day. But when Jennifer leaned over to whisper something to another staff member, casting a glance her way, perhaps a snide remark about the pop star diva, that irritation flared into a small flame of anger. A man with a serious but polite demeanor approached, holding Taylor's documents. "Good morning," he said calmly. "I just need to double-check something. You're Taylor Swift, right?" "Yes," she replied, "the singer." He, too, a liberal who joined local protests against celebrity privilege, nodded, maintaining professionalism. "Thank you for cooperating. We just want to ensure everything's in order, especially for high-profile passengers like yourself." He gestured lightly. "Please proceed." Taylor took back her ticket and ID, heading toward security, feeling curious stares from nearby passengers, though no one spoke up. Travis's words echoed in her mind, "Don't let anyone dim that shine." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. The security line was long but orderly. TSA agents barked instructions as passengers shuffled ahead. Taylor placed her designer purse on the conveyor belt and passed through the metal detector without issue. But as she reached to retrieve her bag, a TSA agent blocked her path. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, polite but firm. "We need to conduct an additional check for safety." Taylor frowned, glancing at her untouched bag. "Why? Is there a problem?" "It's just a random check, ma'am," the agent replied, his tone calm though his eyes betrayed suspicion. "Please follow me. We appreciate your cooperation." He gestured toward a separate area cordoned off by mobile barriers. Taylor complied reluctantly, her frustration mounting. The random check was anything but thorough pat-down, meticulous bag search, and repeated questions about her trip. "What's the purpose of your travel, ma'am?" the agent asked, his patient tone carrying a subtle edge as he held her boarding pass. "I'm heading back to Nashville after a show," Taylor answered, her voice clipped but sharp. "I'm a musician." The agent, a liberal who'd voiced discontent with celebrity culture online, offered a faint smile, polite but with a trace of mockery. I see, an important job. We just need to ensure everything's in order, especially for someone in your position. Heat rushed to Taylor's face at the veiled jab, but she held back, unwilling to escalate. When he finished, he handed back her belongings with a curt, "Thank you, you're free to go." Taylor stepped back into the main terminal, rattled but determined to stay steady. She checked her watch, time was running short before her flight. Her pace quickened as she headed to the gate, resolved not to let these incidents distract her. But nearing the gate, she noticed a cluster of airline staff whispering and pointing her way. A middle-aged woman, name tag reading Laura Mitchell, approached with a stern but professional expression. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but we need to review your ticket and ID again," Laura said, her voice clear and courteous. Taylor handed them over, her patience nearly spent. Laura examined them closely, then said, "We've received a request for further verification about you. Please follow me. We'll sort this out quickly." "Verification for what?" Taylor asked, her voice rising with irritation. "It's standard procedure, ma'am," Laura replied, sympathetic yet firm, already moving toward a side corridor. "This way, please." Taylor hesitated, a gut feeling telling her something was off, but she followed, heart pounding. The corridor led her away from the gate area. Laura stopped abruptly, turned to her, and said, "I'm very sorry, ma'am, but we can't allow you on this flight due to security concerns. Please leave the airport, and we apologize for the inconvenience." Taylor stared at Laura, stunned. "What? Why?" Laura maintained her professionalism, shrugging slightly. "We have our protocols, ma'am." Fury erupted within Taylor. "This is absurd. I've done nothing wrong." Laura crossed her arms, her tone still polite but cold. "If you don't leave voluntarily, we'll have to call security to assist. Please understand." Taylor clenched her fists, her mind reeling. Humiliation surged within her, her eyes stinging, but she refused to let them see her break. Pulling out her phone, she called the one person who could help. "Travis," she said, voice trembling, "I need you." The call ended with a calm but firm reply, "I'm on my way." For Taylor Swift, those words weren't enough to quell the storm raging inside her. Standing in the shadow of the bustling San Francisco International Airport, she couldn't stop replaying what had happened. The humiliation of being treated like an outsider cut deep. With her flight about to depart, she was stranded in this eerily quiet corridor, a stark contrast to the terminal's chaos. Laura had returned to the gate, leaving Taylor alone near a door marked staff only, clutching her bag, fingers trembling. Instinct urged her to step into the brighter, more public terminal where there'd be witnesses, but she hesitated, unsure what might happen if she moved. Her phone buzzed with a text from Travis Kelce, "I'll be there soon. Stay put." Taylor exhaled shakily, his reassurance calming her slightly, but the indignation remained raw. Why was she targeted? She replayed the morning's events, the TSA agents' faces, the airline staff's attitudes, the whispers and pointed looks. It was all too clear. As a celebrity with a polarizing presence, she was used to pushback, but this was different. Their bias wasn't subtle anymore, it was blatant. Lost in thought, she flinched as footsteps approached. Two TSA agents, a man and a woman, appeared, both rigid in posture and stern in expression. The man held a clipboard, gripping it like a shield, while the woman carried a handheld scanner. "Ma'am, we need to conduct another check," the man said, his voice clear but devoid of warmth. "Please place your bag on the table. We'd appreciate your cooperation." Taylor tightened her jaw. "I've already been checked twice," she replied, her tone steady but firm, honed by years in the spotlight. The woman, who'd publicly supported liberal causes online, kept her face neutral. "This is a random check, ma'am. Compliance is mandatory, and we're sorry if this inconveniences you." Taylor stared at them for a moment, then reluctantly placed her bag on the table. She watched as they unzipped it, rummaging through her belongings with little regard for order. They pulled out her notebook, filled with song lyrics, opening it as if searching for something suspicious. Her toiletry bag was dumped out, items scattering chaotically across the table. Is this really necessary? Taylor asked, her voice trembling slightly despite her effort to stay calm. The man ignored her question, picking up her notebook and saying in a professional but faintly suspicious tone, "What's this, ma'am?" "Lyrics for my work," Taylor replied, her patience wearing thin. He, a local who joined anti-celebrity rants online, squinted at the pages, then set them aside with an air of indifference. The woman slowly ran the scanner over the notebook, her movements deliberate as if to prolong the ordeal. Taylor glanced around, hoping to catch the eye of someone who might intervene, but the corridor remained empty. The isolation made the situation feel even more stifling. After several minutes of thorough searching, the agent stepped back. "We need to hold your bag for further inspection," the man said, his tone polite but leaving no room for negotiation. "Please understand our security procedures." "What? No!" Taylor protested, stepping forward instinctively. "You can't take my things. I have a flight to catch." The woman's gaze hardened, though her voice stayed gentle. "Ma'am, if you don't cooperate, we'll have to report this to our superiors. We're just ensuring everyone's safety." "Report to your superiors?" Taylor repeated, her voice rising despite her efforts to hold it back. "You've humiliated me in front of security, and now you want to keep my bag? This is harassment." Her words echoed in the empty corridor. The two agents exchanged a look, their expressions unreadable. Then the man stepped forward. "Ma'am, we ask that you stay calm," he said, his tone patient but tinged with condescension. "We're just doing our job." Taylor took a deep breath, trying to steady her pounding heart. She knew she couldn't let emotions take over, not now. "I'm not going anywhere without my bag," she said, her voice lower but still firm. The man started to respond, but before he could speak, a new figure appeared at the end of the corridor. It was Laura Mitchell, the manager who'd confronted her earlier, accompanied by two security guards. Their presence made the already tense space feel even more cramped. "What's going on here?" Laura asked, her voice sharp but professional, cutting through the charged air. The female TSA agent straightened, maintaining politeness. "We're conducting an additional check, ma'am. She's not fully cooperating." "That's not true," Taylor interjected, her frustration boiling over. "I followed every request you've made, and now you're trying to keep my bag without a valid reason." Laura's eyes narrowed as she sized Taylor up, her tone still calm but resolute. "Ma'am, this situation is becoming disruptive. I'm sorry, but we'll have to ask you to leave the airport to maintain order." The words hit Taylor like a slap. "You're not serious," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't done anything wrong." Laura's expression didn't soften. "We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone who might pose a security risk, ma'am. Please understand our decision." "Security risk?" Taylor echoed, her tone thick with disbelief. "You're calling me a security risk because of who I am?" The silence that followed was suffocatingly heavy. The two guards stepped forward, their stances stern but not directly threatening. Taylor felt her chest tighten, her breaths short and shallow. This couldn't be happening. "I'll call my boyfriend," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Her trembling hand pulled out her phone and dialed. Laura's lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing as Taylor held the phone to her ear. The call connected almost instantly. "Travis," she said, her voice shaky, "I need you. They're kicking me out of the airport." Travis Kelce's voice on the other end was calm but resolute, "Don't move. I'll handle it." As the call ended, Taylor turned back to the TSA agents and Laura. "My boyfriend's on his way," she said, her voice carrying an authority beyond her usual stage presence. "I suggest you think carefully about what you do next." Laura hesitated, her confidence wavering for the first time, but before she could reply, the male TSA agent, a liberal who'd openly criticized Taylor's influence, muttered loud enough for her to hear, "Boyfriend to the rescue, huh? Convenient." Taylor clenched her jaw but held back, refusing to be baited. Instead, she stepped back, leaning against the wall to wait. She felt the weight of the guards and TSA agents' stares pressing down on her, their judgment palpable in the air, a judgment rooted in liberal opposition to her fame and occasional political stances. But she resolved not to let them see her crumble. Outside the corridor, the terminal's noise droned on, announcements blaring, passengers rushing to gates, the world moving as if nothing had happened. But for Taylor, time seemed frozen, each second stretching into eternity. Then, at last, approaching footsteps rang in her ears, carrying a familiar rhythm and steady calm. A wave of relief washed over her as she looked up and saw Travis Kelce striding toward her, his face a mask of composed determination. At 6 feet 5 inches, the NFL star's presence commanded every gaze. The guards instinctively straightened, their expressions shifting from indifference to tense alertness. Laura Mitchell glanced up briefly before adjusting her stance, a forced smile flickering across her lips. Taylor stepped away from the wall, relief evident. She'd always admired Travis's ability to stay calm under pressure, and in this moment, his authoritative composure shielded her from the storm of humiliation that had battered her since arriving at SFO. "Taylor," he said, his voice steady as if oblivious to the tension in the air, "are you okay?" Taylor nodded, though her voice caught as she tried to answer. "They're trying to kick me out of the airport." Travis's gaze shifted to Laura, unreadable but heavy with expectation. "Is that true?" he asked, his tone polite but firm. Laura began, her voice tinged with defensive irritation but still professional. "Sir, we're concerned about her behavior. She's causing a disruption, and we have procedures for handling cases like this." "Causing a disruption?" Travis repeated, raising an eyebrow. His outward calm didn't waver, but his tone carried a subtle sharpness. "Can you explain exactly how my girlfriend has been disruptive?" Laura opened her mouth to respond, but the male TSA agent cut in, his voice brimming with misplaced confidence though still polite. "She hasn't fully complied with our security procedures, sir. We're just doing our job to ensure safety." "That's not true," Taylor interrupted, her voice trembling with anger. "I followed every request you've made. You've treated me like a criminal for no reason, and when I objected to the harassment, you called it a disruption." The male agent's jaw tightened, but he didn't reply. Laura, meanwhile, seemed to shrink slightly under the weight of Taylor's words. Travis's eyes swept over the group, his expression hardening. "It seems there's been a serious misunderstanding here," he said, his voice calm but carrying undeniable authority. "Let's get this straight. First, my girlfriend isn't leaving this airport unless she chooses to. Second, I want a detailed explanation of why she was targeted in the first place." Laura cleared her throat, clearly trying to maintain control of the situation. "Sir, as I said, we have procedures. Her profile was flagged for attention, and we acted accordingly." "Please understand, flagged for what?" Travis asked, his voice now edged with impatience. "She has a valid ticket, full identification, and was ready to board. What specifically triggered the extra scrutiny?" Laura faltered, her face flushing briefly, but the male TSA agent crossed his arms, speaking again with a patient but pointed tone. "Sir, sometimes we have to make judgment calls, especially when something warrants closer review." "Closer review?" Travis echoed, his voice dropping, the weight of his words pressing down on the room. "You made a judgment call because my girlfriend's Taylor Swift, didn't you?" The air in the corridor grew stifling. The female TSA agent shot a nervous glance at her colleague, but he avoided her eyes. "I assure you," Laura began, her voice wavering slightly but still polite, "we don't tolerate discrimination at this airport." "That's an admirable policy," Travis replied, his tone icy, "but actions speak louder than policies. From where I stand, this entire situation reeks of bias. My girlfriend is standing here, humiliated and stressed, because your team can't handle her fame. Am I wrong?" No one answered. The silence hung heavy, a tacit admission. Travis sighed slowly, the sound laced with disappointment. He turned to Taylor, his expression softening slightly. "Ready to go?" he asked gently. Taylor nodded, clutching her bag tight. She wanted out of this nightmare, but part of her bristled at the thought of letting them off so easily. As they turned to leave, Laura stammered, "Wait, sir, perhaps we can discuss this further to resolve it." Travis paused, his back still to the group. When he spoke, his voice was low and even, but the warning in it was unmistakable. You'll be hearing from me again. I suggest you prepare for a thorough review of your so-called procedures. Without another word, he placed a hand on Taylor's shoulder, guiding her back to the main terminal. The corridor behind them fell into an eerie silence, the weight of their departure lingering in the air. As they walked away, Taylor felt a mix of relief and lingering frustration. She glanced at Travis, searching for a hint of his true emotions, but he maintained his calm demeanor, eyes fixed ahead. Trav, she hesitated, I'm sorry you had to come here. I didn't know what else to do. Travis stopped, turning to face her, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. Taylor, you don't need to apologize for standing up for yourself. What happened today was unacceptable, and it's not your fault. You did the right thing calling me. His words eased some of the tension in her chest, but the sting of the morning's events still simmered. They treated me like I didn't belong here, she said softly, her voice choked with emotion. I know, Travis replied, his tone heavy with a mix of anger and sorrow. And they'll pay for it. As Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift stepped back into the main terminal of San Francisco Airport, the airport's clamor gradually filled the silence between them. Announcements, hurried footsteps, and whispered conversations buzzed around, feeling jarring after the stifling stillness of the corridor. Taylor glanced at Travis, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the storm of emotions swirling within her. She knew him well enough to sense the edge in his otherwise steady stride, a quiet fury he rarely let show. They paused near a row of seats in the terminal, far enough from security to avoid prying eyes yet close enough for Travis's protective instincts to stay sharp. Taylor sat down, clutching her bag as if it were a lifeline. Travis stood still, his gaze sweeping the area with quiet authority. Trav, she said, her voice low but taut, I don't want this to happen to anyone else. Her words hung in the air for a moment before Travis nodded. It won't, he said firmly. We'll make sure of it. Just then, an airline representative in uniform approached, her expression a blend of unease and practiced calm. She was flanked by two other staff members, their body language stiff and uncomfortable. The leader, wearing a name tag reading Emily Carter, addressed Travis directly. Mr. Kelce, she began, her voice carefully controlled, on behalf of the airport and airline, I apologize for any inconvenience you and Ms. Swift experienced this morning. Travis turned to face her, his expression unreadable. Inconvenience, he repeated, his tone calm but sharp enough to make Emily falter briefly. You call it an inconvenience? Emily hesitated, her composure slipping. I assure you, we're taking this matter very seriously. I've been briefed on the situation and wanted you to know we're investigating? Travis echoed, his voice clipped. Let me be clear, Ms. Carter. My girlfriend was humiliated, targeted, and treated like she didn't belong here. That's not an inconvenience, it's bias. If your staff can't tell the difference, you've got a bigger problem than you realize. Taylor watched the exchange silently, her emotions torn between satisfaction and lingering frustration. Emily's face flushed, and she glanced at her colleagues as if seeking support. We deeply regret what happened, Emily said, her tone softer. If there's anything we can do to make this right, there is, Travis cut in, his voice steady but carrying undeniable authority. First, I want the names of every TSA and staff member involved in this. Second, I expect a full report on the so-called procedures that allowed this to happen. Third, I want you to ensure this behavior isn't just addressed but eradicated. Emily nodded quickly, pulling a notepad from her pocket. Of course, Mr. Kelce. I'll personally oversee the investigation. You'll do more than oversee, Travis said, his voice calm but resolute. You'll act. Because if I don't see concrete, immediate changes, I'll make sure this hits every major news outlet, and the NFL's got my back on this one. The threat, delivered in a measured tone, visibly unsettled the group. Emily scribbled furiously in her notepad, nodding repeatedly as her colleagues hurried off. Travis turned back to Taylor, resting a comforting hand on her shoulder, the touch steadying her. We're not done yet, he said quietly, but first, let's get my girl on her flight. The airline's decision to delay the flight for Taylor stirred a ripple among waiting passengers. Whispers spread quickly, a few craning their necks to glimpse the pop star tied to the Eras tour. Taylor, feeling their stares, kept her head down as she followed Travis to the gate. The gate agent, a young man with a nervous smile, swiftly scanned their boarding passes, gesturing with exaggerated courtesy. "Wishing you a smooth and safe trip, Mr. Kelsey," he said, his voice slightly shaky. Travis gave a curt nod, his focus unwavering as they stepped onto the jetway. Taylor exhaled, feeling a flicker of relief for the first time that morning. As they settled into their seats, Travis turned to her, his expression softening. "You okay?" he asked. Taylor nodded, though her voice betrayed lingering unease. "I'm just tired." Travis placed his hand over hers. "I know. But you did the right thing standing up for yourself, calling me. That took guts." Her eyes welled up, but she blinked the tears away. "It shouldn't have to," she said. "No," Travis agreed, "but as long as people judge others for their fame or their voice, we've got to keep pushing back." The flight passed smoothly, but Taylor couldn't shake the heaviness. Peering out the window, she saw clouds stretching endlessly below, her mind replaying the morning's events, the TSA agents, Laura Mitchell, their snide remarks, people who likely never considered the consequences of their actions. Travis's voice broke through her thoughts. "What are you thinking?" Taylor turned to him, her expression resolute. "How to stop this from happening again." Travis gave a faint smile, his eyes glinting with pride. "That's my girl. Because this fight isn't just yours or mine, it's for everyone who's ever been made to feel they don't belong." His words stayed with her, igniting a new sense of purpose as the plane touched down in Nashville. Taylor felt more determined than ever to turn this experience into something meaningful. As they disembarked, Travis's phone buzzed with a message. He scanned it quickly, his face darkening briefly. "What is it?" Taylor asked. He handed her the screen, an email from Emily Carter outlining immediate steps the airline and TSA plan to take. The final line caught her eye: "We've also placed the involved staff on administrative leave pending investigation." It was a start. The email lingered between Taylor and Travis as they walked through Nashville's terminal. The TSA staff suspension was a small victory, but it didn't erase the weight of what had happened. Travis's jaw tightened as he pocketed his phone, his mind already calculating the next move. For Taylor, the morning's events remained an open wound, the humiliation, the scrutiny, the disdain, each moment lodged like a thorn she couldn't pull free. The bustle of Nashville offered no comfort as they slid into the back seat of a waiting car. "Trav," she hesitated, "do you think anything will really change? They suspended those employees, but isn't that just damage control?" Travis turned to her, his gaze steady. "You're right to be skeptical. Suspension's a first step, but it's not enough. Accountability has to go deeper. The system that allows this behavior needs to be dismantled." Taylor nodded, though her frustration still simmered. "I just don't want this swept under the rug," she said. "It won't be," Travis assured her. "We'll see to that." As the car wove through Nashville streets, Travis made calls to his management team and NFL contacts, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable urgency. He recounted the SFO incident in detail, stressing the need for a strong response. By the time they reached Taylor's home, he'd set a plan in motion. The next morning, the story began breaking across media outlets. News channels ran it with sharp headlines: "Taylor Swift targeted in San Francisco airport scandal, liberal staff harass pop icon, calls for accountability over TSA misconduct." Taylor's team later released a statement laying out the incident and demanding immediate reform. It was carefully worded, but the message was clear: this wasn't an isolated event, and Taylor was determined to use her platform to address the systemic issues that enabled bias to fester. Public reaction was swift and polarized. Fans flooded social media with solidarity, #SwiftiesStandUp trending, while critics accused her of exaggerating or leveraging her fame. Amid the noise, the incident had clearly struck a nerve. Within days, an internal investigation launched at SFO. The TSA and involved airline faced intense scrutiny as reports emerged not just of Taylor's experience, but of similar complaints from other passengers who'd been unfairly treated. Whistleblowers within the TSA began speaking out, painting a troubling picture of a workplace rife with unspoken bias and unchecked authority. The staff involved in Taylor's case faced mounting consequences. Public pressure grew as details of their behavior emerged. One employee, identified in leaked reports as James Carter, who'd mocked Taylor during the security check, drew particular ire. Videos of his past rude and dismissive treatment of passengers surfaced online, revealing a pattern of unprofessionalism. A damning account came from an anonymous TSA employee, revealing Carter had made derogatory remarks about high-profile passengers, calling them entitled troublemakers on multiple occasions. That report, paired with a slew of complaints, led to Carter's termination. His complicit colleagues soon followed suit. Laura Mitchell, the manager who ordered Taylor's expulsion, was also removed from her position after an internal review concluded her actions were unjustified. Her departure was labeled a resignation, but insider sources confirmed she was forced out. For Taylor, the outcome was both sweet and bitter. She followed the news closely, her emotions a mix of relief and lingering anger. She took satisfaction in seeing the wrongdoers punished, but knew it was just a small piece of a larger picture. In the weeks that followed, she began speaking out about her experience, sharing her story in interviews and on social media. Her words were candid and forceful, resonating across the globe. She didn't just talk about her own ordeal but also the broader issue of bias and injustice, using her platform to amplify the voices of others who'd been silenced. Travis stood by her, offering guidance and support but also encouraging her to find her own voice. "This is your fight too," he told her one evening as they prepared for a TV interview. "You have the power to make a difference, Tay. Don't be afraid to use it." By month's end, the reforms Travis had pushed for began taking shape. TSA nationwide underwent mandatory bias awareness training, and a misconduct reporting hotline was established. An independent oversight committee, though still in its early stages, promised greater accountability for the agency. For Taylor, these changes were a step in the right direction, but she knew the battle wasn't over. The SFO experience was a painful reminder of the work left to do, yet it also showed her the power of speaking out and the importance of standing up for what's right, even against adversity. Morning sunlight cast a golden glow over Nashville as Travis sipped coffee on their porch. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of media attention, high-stakes calls, and advocacy, but gazing out at the city, a quiet resolve settled within him. This wasn't his first fight for fairness, nor would it be his last. Inside, Taylor prepared for another public appearance. She'd been invited to speak at a national conference on accountability and influence, a chance to share her story and lessons learned. The thought of addressing a large crowd made her nervous, but she understood the weight of her voice now. As she adjusted her jacket in the mirror, Travis appeared in the doorway. "How do you feel?" he asked, his tone gentle. Taylor turned to him, her eyes a mix of anxiety and determination. "Nervous," she admitted, "but ready." Travis smiled, stepping into the room. "You've got this," he said. "Just speak from the heart. People need to hear your truth." His words were comforting, but Taylor couldn't shake the sense of responsibility weighing on her shoulders. The SFO incident had become a catalyst for change, yet also a reminder of how pervasive bias remained in society. As a global icon, she was determined to use her platform to drive dialogue on fairness and accountability, but the road ahead was daunting. The conference took place in a grand hall in Nashville, its walls lined with banners touting influence, fairness, and transparency. As Taylor and Travis arrived, they were met with applause and flashing cameras. The attention was overwhelming, but Taylor drew focus from Travis's calm presence beside her and the strength of his unwavering support. The audience was a diverse mix of fans, activists, journalists, and industry leaders. When Taylor took the podium, the room fell silent, all eyes on her. She took a deep breath, gripping the lectern to steady herself. "Good morning," she began, her voice firm despite the nerves within. "I'm Taylor Swift, and today I'm here to share a story, one that, sadly, I'm not alone in experiencing." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "Recently, I flew from San Francisco to Nashville after a tour show. What should have been a routine trip turned into an experience of humiliation, bias, and harassment. I was targeted, scrutinized, and ultimately denied boarding, not for what I did, but for who I am." Her voice grew stronger as she detailed the incident, describing the invasive search, the dismissive attitudes, and the blatant assumptions tied to her fame. She spoke of the pain and frustration she felt, but also the resilience and resolve that carried her through. "This isn't just about me," she said, her gaze sweeping the crowd. It's about everyone who's been made to feel they don't belong because of their identity, their voice, or what others assume. It's about a system that lets bias dictate how people are treated, and about the change we must collectively demand. The room erupted in applause as she finished, her words striking a deep chord. As she stepped down, Travis met her with a proud smile, his eyes shining. "You were incredible," he said, giving her a brief hug. "That's exactly what people needed to hear." Taylor felt relief and pride alongside a renewed sense of purpose. The fight for fairness wasn't over, but she knew she had the strength to keep going. In the weeks that followed, the reforms Travis championed began to take root. Mandatory bias awareness training rolled out for TSA staff nationwide, with sessions aimed at challenging prejudices and fostering respect. An independent oversight committee was established to investigate complaints and ensure accountability. A bias reporting hotline went live, giving passengers a direct channel to speak out. The changes drew mixed reactions. Many fans praised them as progress, while critics dismissed them as unnecessary or celebrity-driven. Travis was no stranger to such pushback, but he remained steadfast in his goals, and Taylor kept fighting for change too. She used her platform to amplify others' voices, sharing stories of those who'd faced similar injustices through speeches, interviews, and social media posts. Her words sparked vital conversations, inspiring others to speak up and demand accountability. One afternoon, Taylor received an email from a fan who'd passed through SFO after her incident. They described being treated fairly and respectfully by TSA, a stark contrast to their prior experiences. "I don't know what changed," the email read, "but I want to thank you. Your story made a difference." Taylor read the email twice, her heart swelling with gratitude and hope. Months passed, and the ripple effects of the incident continued to spread. Other airports began adopting similar reforms, and advocacy groups pushed for broader change in the transportation sector. The conversation about bias extended beyond the TSA, touching on issues in media, public spaces, and culture, reflecting the deep polarization in American society. For Taylor, the experience was a turning point. It was painful and humiliating, but also a powerful lesson in resilience and the importance of speaking out. One evening, as she and Travis sat on their porch overlooking Nashville's twinkling lights, she turned to him thoughtfully. "Do you think things will really change?" she asked. Travis took a sip of coffee, his gaze steady. "Change comes slowly," he said, "but every step matters. Every voice raised, every injustice challenged, it all adds up. The fact that you're asking this, that you care enough to fight for a better future, is a sign we're on the right path." Taylor nodded, her resolve hardening. The road ahead would be long and tough, but she was ready to walk it. Taylor Swift's story at San Francisco Airport became a symbol of the struggle for fairness and accountability in a polarized America. It served as a reminder of resilience's power, the importance of holding the biased accountable, and the potential for change when people stand up. For Taylor, it marked the start of a journey that would shape her future in ways she'd never imagined, from a pop icon to a potent voice for those who'd faced unfair treatment. The tale of liberal airport staff kicked out Taylor Swift, but regretted everything when her boyfriend arrived vividly mirrors the cultural tension shaping America today, especially in 2025, where fame and influence continue to clash fiercely with personal biases. At San Francisco International Airport, a city renowned for its liberal leanings, staff like Jennifer Brooks and James Carter targeted Taylor Swift not for her actions, but for her celebrity and occasional political stances. Details like Jennifer's notable influence jab or James Carter's entitled troublemakers remark reveal how personal bias can seep into public institutions, turning routine interactions into ideological battlegrounds. Travis Kelce's arrival, her boyfriend and an NFL powerhouse, coupled with Taylor's global influence, forced consequences on the staff, from James's firing to Laura Mitchell's forced exit, highlighting that power and networks remain key to combating injustice in modern America. The lesson from this story is that in a polarized America, where platforms like X buzz with contention, bias can strike unexpectedly, like at Taylor's check-in counter. Individuals must arm themselves with resolve and strategy to protect themselves. When Taylor stayed composed amid harassment, called Travis instead of engaging directly, and later leveraged her platform to speak out, she turned humiliation into strength, sparking TSA reforms like bias training and a reporting hotline. This teaches us, when facing bias, whether at work, school, or public spaces, stand firm like Taylor with her valid ticket, seek trusted allies like Travis with his connections, and turn experiences into public action via media or community. American culture prizes individual liberty and accountability, and Taylor's story underscores that silence isn't an option. Instead, act persistently, tap into networks, and transform injustice into a catalyst for change. As she made SFO answer for its actions, the advice is clear: always be ready to defend your stance, but do so smartly and strategically. Because in a divided society, strength lies in turning a personal voice into a collective one. Thanks for following Taylor Swift's stand against bias at SFO. Subscribe to stay updated on more journeys fighting for fairness and accountability in America today. See you in the next story, where we continue celebrating the bold voices shaping our future.